A Republican congressional candidate from Georgia and former radio host Jody Hice lashed out at Obama for banning anti-gay businesses from getting federal contracts. This is something we've covered. It's overwhelmingly positive. I wish he did it day one of his administration, but still, credit where credit is due. They did do it recently, and now the federal government can't discriminate based on sexual orientation. So let's listen to his argument against that here. And then I want to point out the blatant contradiction that he's apparently unaware of.
Congress has the potential now, the opportunity to clearly prohibit our government from itself discriminating against any individual or any group or organization, whether nonprofit or for-profit, it doesn't matter, but to prevent the government from discriminating based on the beliefs about marriage and sexuality. Those things are irrelevant to whether or not an individual or a group is able to work with our government. Our government, our system, absolutely should be prohibited from discriminating against these type of groups. It should absolutely be prohibited from using tax policy and employment and contracts for working with our federal government, licensing, accrediting, whatever you want to. Our government should not be allowed to use these things to penalize individuals and groups for not adjusting their philosophies to political correct ideas.
Do you get what he's saying? He's saying the government needs to stop discriminating against the discriminators. Wait, what? The government needs to let the discriminators discriminate and stop discriminating against the discriminators. But no, the government isn't discriminating. They're making sure that you don't discriminate. There's a big difference there. Now, you know what this is? This is like one of the elementary level conservative arguments that they find overwhelmingly convincing, but it's so easy to pick it apart by giving counterexamples, and it really is just so stupid. He's essentially making the Rush Limbaugh argument that he makes about gay marriage, where he says, oh, the liberals pretend that they're tolerant, but I'm against gay marriage and they tell me I'm wrong. So that makes them intolerant, not me. Now, why is that so pathetic? Because there's a difference between being tolerant and being tolerant of intolerance. So the argument that they're making is the same as saying, well, I'm against interracial marriage, and, oh, you disagree with me? Well, then you're intolerant. No, you're intolerant. You just said you're against interracial marriage. What are you talking about? Could you imagine the most extreme example of that? Look, it holds true, so I got to bring it up. It's like somebody saying, well, I'm in favor of slavery. Oh, you disagree with me? Well, you're so intolerant. But you're in favor of slavery. You're the intolerant one. No, for me to be tolerant of your intolerance is for me to be intolerant. I know that's hard to follow, but I think you understand what I'm saying. So reality is that's one of the most unbelievably stupid arguments I've ever heard. Because you can make the same argument they're making here about interracial marriages, about desegregation, about Jim Crow, about slavery, and you can say, oh, you need to allow me to discriminate because, you know, if you don't, that means you're intolerant. No, you're flipping it on its head. That's a really, really pathetic argument, and anybody can beat back your bullshit by just thinking a little bit and doing some thought exercises. And you know, man, the thing that annoys me is that, again, it all comes back to grandfathering in their own stupidity, right? So what they believe is, well, because of my religion, I don't like no gays. I don't want to treat them equal. It's my religion. And so they grandfather in their bigotry and stupidity and hatred. And then they say, well, I'll just criticize everybody else. But why not turn that criticism inward and look at yourself and say, well, am I really doing the right thing here? You know, because people always made religious arguments against interracial marriage. I mean, that was the case until, what, the 70s, the 80s? And then it was the same thing for desegregation. I mean, back during the slave days, you had the southern plantation owners. They would argue that it was the Northerners who were racist because, oh, black people are my property, so I'm obviously going to treat them well, right? What happens when you buy a car? Oh, you treat the car really well because it's yours. So it's the Northern people who are racist because they want to free them into the harsh world. I want to protect my property, my black slaves. So throughout history, they always tried to flip it. But look, it's obvious that that's not the reality. Who's actually, anti-discrimination? The people who want to treat people equal or the people who don't? Easiest question ever.